destruction of your mind and your soul. You're falling down a black hole. It feels like destruction. Is moving further away. Yeah, yeah. They're making all the right noises, but they don't really know. But it feels like destruction of your mind and your soul. You're falling down a black hole.
All right.
It feels like destruction.
All right, all right, all right, all right. It didn't work the way that we wanted it to, Fowler. That did not go the way we thought it was going to go, but whatever. A for effort, right? I can see Deidre in the
Absolutely.
back room. Right. You know what? So next week or the next show, we'll get it just a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. But it's better than nothing, right? It's better than us just saying, hey, here we are. Welcome to Men in Trenches, right?
My dear, absolutely. All the best to you. Good evening.
All right. So, Dr. Fowler, how you been since Wednesday?
Thank you so much for asking. I am well, and I'm pleased to be here. Pleased to be able to join yourself and the viewers out there, both near and far. And I'd like to offer my best and my fondest wishes for all of the dads, those who have joined us and those who have not, especially at this time of year. My heart and my prayers go out to the dads. Those are with their children and those who are not. And I'd just like to take a moment also during the course of the show, if you don't mind, Darren, to
Mm,
acknowledge the dads who have had their children taken from CPS and who just could not withstand any more of the pain of separation and the pain of being emasculated and demeaned, and some of which we are aware of who have taken their own lives
mm,
over the course of the last year, just being driven beyond the brink of madness. So when we can, if we can acknowledge those precious and amazing lives
yeah.
that have been lost without the redemption of their children.
Mm,
Children are still in the system, and now the children don't even have a dad in the abstract sense
mm,
of the word.
yeah.
Uh, so if we can do that in due course,
Whew.
I feel we need to do that.
Yeah, it's
Mm.
it's tough. It's tough on both the parents for sure. And being a dad, because you're a father and this stuff, you get isolated immediately. You get be played a demon right from the gates. You're an abuser, you're this, you're a drunk, you're a drug addict, you're this. Tell your, listen, mother of the children, if you throw this guy out, you're going to be all set. We'll give you your kids back. We all know it's a lie, but the games that they play, it's tough, and people don't realize that what that does to a man. Like the man has already been diminished as the safety man of the home, the cornerstone, the one that is to provide the safety and the lessons, and to be that big guy, and they just strip that right away from you. And I mean, it's hard to carry on, but we've got to, because we're men, and that's what this is all about, and that's what this movement's about. um Dr. Fowler, we got ourselves a special guest tonight. We got Miss
Oh.
Deidre Payne. She's back there. She was just there. I think she skipped out for a second, so I was going to give her a grand entrance, but oh, there she is. She's back. We could let her come in now. Um, we'll let her come on in with us. Miss Deidre,
Oh,
how are you?
yay. Good, good. I didn't know if you like restarted your show to try and join me and then it didn't work, so then I didn't know if I was going to be on or not.
No, you're here. You're in the house with us. How you been, Deidre? Good. All right. Hanging
Oh,
in there.
yeah. Hanging in there. I mean, it is what it is, but um not the best of situations, but I guess just keep trucking along.
Yeah,
Mm.
I mean, we're all in that boat, and obviously the holiday season sucks. I mean, there's no way of even sugarcoating that. It's
Yeah,
hard. It's
that
just
was definitely a really hard couple of days to get through. That was for sure.
it is. And this whole run
Mm.
from Thanksgiving to New Year's, like I used to enjoy the hell out of it, and now I just want it to race to be over. It sucks. It's very terrible. It's hard. Um, and unfortunately, we have to push through it. Like there's no because we're fighting for our kids. We're not going to lay down and just say we're not going to. There's always an option. This is what people need to realize. They need to stop thinking that because they got TPR that's it, it's over. No, you fight. You fight for your kids. There's something, and there's people like us that are trying to make things happen. And trying to turn these pages so that the TPR isn't the end all. Like there's a revival after the death penalty, because it's not right. It's not right that the three of us are sitting there, our stories similar but yet very different, and every one of us, had a miserable Christmas. And why? We're all three good people. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
this is not. If we have screw ups in our lives, we have screw ups in our life. Um, you know, I don't even think any of us had that go on in our lives. Like there's nothing that happened in any three of our stories that should have warranted this that we're in, but we're in it. And there's so many people out there that are like this.
And
And
the unfortunate part of it all is they always want to say that, it's in the best interest of the child, whatever their decision is. But really, if you think about it, exactly all three of our situations, I think that is the exact opposite, meaning our children are the ones that are mainly suffering, not being with us as their parents or grandparent. And, you know, recently, now that my mom moved to Vegas a couple weeks ago, and, you know, my kids are now in Vegas, I've already noticed in just 2 short weeks how much my kids now are just completely distancing themselves from us, because it's like I told you the other night, it's like out of sight, out of mind. It's like they don't even know when they're going to see us next. So they don't have anything to look forward to as far as a date. And according to my mom, she doesn't even want to respond to me. So it's like they're already slowly, I can see when I talk to them on the phone, they're just like not even wanting to really talk anymore. And it's just like crushing me, because I feel like now that I'm not seeing them like every weekend and giving them that next, like, okay, well, I'm going to see you, next weekend. Now it's like they're already slowly in just 2 short weeks showing me that they don't even have an interest in really picking up the phone to talk to me anymore. And it's just like, wow, I can already see how it's going to keep progressing. And I'm just feeling more and more like pulled further and further away from not only them, but the whole situation in its entirety now.
But do you think that's them, or do you think that's the pressure that they get from
Oh yeah, I'm sure it's
the
the
mother?
pressure that they're getting from my mom, but at the same time, it's also because they completely just see how much I never have control of the situation. And I
Right.
can never really show them that, when I kept telling them that they were moving, I kept saying, well, me and dad are going to come out there. If we have to, we'll drive out there. Well, I finally like laid down the law with my mom and kept texting her and texting her. And finally yesterday I texted her 2 times and said, if I come out to Vegas this weekend, can I please see the kids? And she didn't respond to me. She finally responded to me today and said, no, we still have a lot of unpacking to do and you're not taking them anywhere here. And I replied back with, so when am I going to see my kids? She won't respond to me now. I've sent it 3 times.
Oh, wow. This
Meaning
sucks.
unpacking, they've been there for 2 fucking weeks, and every time I talk to them, they're playing their Nintendo or doing their tablet. Meaning, yeah, they really have a lot of unpacking to do. And what does
Mhm.
she mean by I'm not taking them anywhere there? What is that supposed to mean? I could
These
take
are
them
our
anywhere
children.
here when they lived here, but now all of a sudden they're in Vegas?
Mhm.
I
It's
just
tough.
feel like she feels like now that she's in Vegas, she's just completely like washed her hands of me, is what I'm gathering.
And that's your own mom. Like Dr.
That's
Fowler
my
and I were
own
just talking
mom.
about
That's
this.
my own
Like,
mom.
what is
But does she not
re-
realize how much that's affecting my kids? Like, does she just think that my kids don't want to see their mom and their dad anymore?
right? This is it. Like, they
Like,
don't know, like, what's going on
does
with
she
Dr.
not
Fowler's
really?
granddaughter. Like,
Well,
what's
she
going on
doesn't
with my
care.
daughter?
That's the moral of the story. She does not
I don't
care.
think any. I don't think any of them do. And this is where the best interest of a child is, like,
That's exactly what I was saying.
bullshit.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yep.
no, Dr. Fowler's granddaughter needs to be with Dr. Fowler. My daughter needs to be with me and Mary. Your children need to be with you and your husband. Like, they are our children.
And
This is
all of these people that have our kids are all in it for the wrong reason.
agreed.
And the people that are suffering at the end of the day are the children.
Dr. Fowler, what's your thoughts on this?
Well, first of all, my empathies and my sympathies to you, Deidre. It's got to
Thank
be a
you.
horrible torment to have your loyalties torn in so many directions. I can only imagine the pain. I've had a lot of experiences of my own. And even though the family relationships may not have been perfect uh, before this invasion with CPS, it simply mitigates against any bond that the family would even be able to conserve. They make this the way that this is manipulated. The family members are manipulated, and I feel sorry for your mother too, because I would imagine that deep inside she has to have some dissonance within herself that she may not be able to articulate or even admit to. But that can't feel good to have your grandchildren and then here's your child, their mother, and there's this tension and separation, and then um, just now wanting to sever the bond, really. It's got to be very,
I
very
mean, even my
challenging.
11-year-old consistently asks me all the time, like, is grandma really your mom? And for an 11-year-old to really think of it like in that kind of complex, like, thought
Mhm.
process, meaning he sees how basically horrible my mother treats me, as far as he really does not think that she could possibly be my mother and witness the way that she basically treats me. I mean, she literally, ever since this case started, I have not seen her face to face once. So it's been over 3 years. I
What was your guys'
barely would,
relationship? What was your relationship before this?
I mean, growing up, out of me and my older sister and younger brother, I was considered her favorite. My
Right.
older sister left to go live with my dad right when she had the opportunity to. And then the second my dad could take my brother under his wing, he did. And then they moved to Vegas, and she's never then lived in the same state as my brother ever since right now, when she got to retire there, because that's her golden child now. But up until all of that, I was like her child, but ever
Mm.
since, number one, I got with my husband, 14 years ago, and he's African American. She really showed her colors then. But I mean,
Mm.
we've now had our 3 kids and still are together, but we've had all of our hiccups. And all along the way, she just can't seem to fathom why I'm still by his side and how I could still love him and how he could still love me. But, she's on her third marriage and is still unhappy. So, I mean, go figure. So,
Right.
I
Oh,
mean,
it's
there's
just
never been it's always been about, brokenness in my family, and same with my husband's. And so we wanted to be that turning page. And it's just almost like I feel like my mom is just kind of like almost jealous in the way that she can't seem to think why we're still together, type of thing. Like, I don't know. I don't really understand what she is getting out of choosing to go this route instead of actually being the practicing Catholic that she says that she is, and tries to teach my 2 kids now and baptize them in the Catholic Church and everything, unbeknownst to me. And tells me when I go to a Christian church that I'm going to a holy roller bullshit church. And I
wow.
mean, she's just the biggest hypocrite that you can imagine. And as far as she's treated my youngest, she's not ever acknowledged that he even exists. Um, when I found out that they were confirmed in moving a couple weeks ago, I contacted, the foster parents of my youngest, um, and told them that, it was confirmed that they were going to be moving, and could they please see his brother one last time. Of course, they jumped on that because they always want to look good in my other kids' eyes. And so when we were going to go see my youngest this last couple of weeks, my mom hounded my 2 other kids like you wouldn't believe, to the point where I don't even know where she thought any of it was anywhere near okay. But she was telling them things like, he's not even legally your brother. He's been adopted. I don't even know why you're seeing him. This is ridiculous. And went on and on and on about down talking him, and then me and my husband to the kids, to where my oldest literally cried himself to sleep that night, to where my middle child had to reach over and give my older child some silly putty, because I guess that's what they've learned in their counseling, like to deal with stress. And that's the only thing that could make him stop crying. And here my mom was in the other room and could obviously give a care, whatever, to try and even console him, let alone be the grandparent slash parent in the situation and remedy this situation. Like, she literally was going to let him cry himself to sleep, all because of what she was bad now talking about their mother, their father, and their brother.
Man. That's
And it's
this
just
is
like, but yet she tells me all the time that she's trying to raise my kids as good Catholic boys and knowing what's right from wrong and not lying. And whenever she would catch them in a lie because of something that they were trying to cover up with what we were doing, even though we didn't want them to feel like they had to lie, but it was for whatever the reason was. Like, if they weren't allowed to go back to our house, but they really wanted to, and they did, they would lie to my mom. Well, then she would catch them in a lie. And then she immediately would tell them that she had to take them to confession because of the lies that they were doing. I mean, it's just so sick the way that she's like just manipulating every situation for what it is for that particular day or moment or storyline. But then the
Mhm.
next day it could be the complete opposite. I mean,
Well, I
I
mean,
could
you're
write like
lucky.
a whole movie with what my mom is in a nutshell, but it's just really sad to think that my kids are having to grow up in this kind of um environment when it's not necessary.
Hmm. That's
They
it.
never
And that's
wanted
it.
anything to do with my kids until she started to see the dollar signs. That's the end all of
Mhm.
end all is the money. She's now so addicted and reliant upon this money that there's just no even way that she could ever see not having them because of the money.
Mhm. It's crazy. And your situation is it's kind of crazy because you've been TPR'd, you get access to your kids, so it's almost even harder for you because you're seeing the degradation of the relationship as it's happening. Whereas in our situation so far, well, mine anyway, it was like boom, you're done. That's it. You never even got to say goodbye, no nothing. So I didn't like with you, it's like it's a constant trauma for you, like nothing's getting better. It's getting worse and it's getting worse and it's getting worse, and as much, and you
And
look at
what
you
I'm
still
fearful
sitting
of
there,
is my
and
oldest. He holds everything in so much because he has always been trained by my husband to be like, you're the older brother. You have to look out for your younger brother. Like, and so he always like feels like he holds it in. But when he lets out, it's usually something that ends up either getting him in trouble or
right,
reprimanded or something. And my mom has always picked on him out of the two to the fullest and always says, oh, you're just like your father and you're this and you're that. But what I'm afraid of is now that he's starting to reach like those preteen years. I mean, God, I would only pray and everything hope not to be, but I wouldn't be surprised one day if he ends up doing something that, oh my gosh, would not
right.
be able to be reversible, if you know what I mean, because of all the frustration and the anger and everything that he has to hold inside of himself. And it makes me so upset because there are so many situations that I find out after the fact that have happened to where I can't be there to protect him, number one. But number two, it's like this poor kid, he has nowhere to turn and no way out, but yet he has to just take it and take it and take it. And it's just, to me, it's just so unnecessary. I've even almost wanted to tell my mom, you could keep the fucking money, give me my kids back,
Hmm.
but she's just so brainwashed that I don't even think that she thinks there's even an option for me to still get them back. I think she thinks it's done, that's it, it's over. But obviously there isn't, but I don't want
Right,
to
and
tell
you're going
her
to be a
that.
thorn in their side no matter what. You're going to be there, like
Yeah.
this is what I'm saying. Like this doesn't end for parents. Like there's no end to this. Fowler has been doing this for 20 freaking years. 20 years. She's been fighting for her. She's put her entire life aside to make sure that she keeps her family in check in the bloodlines and all of this stuff. And these bastards are still giving her shit about this kid, that this grandchild of hers that they should have just given to her. They should just
And see, my mom
what are
could have
they
taken
doing?
in, my mom even could have taken in my youngest when he was
Uh-huh.
born. She could have saved my youngest from being adopted. But we all know how the story goes and the funding and everything. And I feel like
Uh-huh.
that's the only reason why my case went as long as it did, is because they had the eye on the prize for my youngest. And if it wasn't for the foster parents wanting to adopt, they could have been the legal guardian just like my mom, and then our rights wouldn't have been terminated. The only reason why our rights were terminated for my youngest is because they wanted to adopt. So therefore, they got to be the last, basically, decision maker of our situation with our youngest. But they strung us along too and tried to play us and tell us that they were going to do anything necessary to help us, reunify, when it was the complete opposite. But it's just sad to think that every story we hear out of CPS is the same basically scenario. Nobody knows anything until it's too late, and then your kids are gone, and it's all about the funding. And it's like we always say, when are all of us, like outraged parents, grandparents, whatever, gonna finally be able to come and do something? I don't see it ever happening because of the whole way it's set up with the funding and whatnot and the hierarchy of everybody. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, that's what we're trying to do. And Fowler and I have been action steps, like we decided that we don't want to have the typical show of, let's talk about what we've done. Like, what can we do? Instead, I mean, the stories are important and they are what got us all here, but like, what can we do? Like, what are the things, I mean, what can we do? Like, so I know that a lot of us are trying to hit the appeals, like there's things that people are working on day in and day out. I mean, Fowler and I last night, we worked through the night and everything to get her into court today. And that's up to her to do that story. But like, that's what we do. You know, Deidre, how many endless nights have you been, you know, like you're on the phone with people trying to figure out a way. And if the three of us are doing that, there's hundreds, if not thousands more that are doing it. And that should be enough to show these people, look, you're doing something wrong here. We didn't beat our kids. We didn't smash. We weren't, you know, putting heroin needles into them. We weren't throwing them downstairs. They weren't going to school with bruises. You know, like, this is just absolutely asinine. Imminent danger is bull. You know, best interest of the child is bull. All this stuff is crap. So it needs to just go away. I mean, that's the bottom line. Fowler, in 20 years, how have you seen this system, like, either increase in goodness, decrease? What have you seen in all your time with this?
The whole idea of child welfare and child social services was degrading from the inception. The ideal is not really to promote the welfare and well-being of children, but the idea has always been for the nation state to control and to dominate the families through their most vulnerable portal, which is the children. So going back 21 years ago, before my oldest grandson was born, Child Protective Services, what an ironic name, in my area was always considered the most dreadful and the most horrific experience that any family could ever have. No one ever wanted to be involved with what we call DHS. It's always been devastating. It's always been massively destructive. It's always been alienating. And there's always a presumption, there's always been a presumption of immunity from justice by the stakeholders in this system. Now, what's made it worse, of course, is first of all the money incentive. The dollars are there, and the dollars have just exploded through the roof. So trafficking is popular. It's trending now all over the globe. And trafficking, who's the most vulnerable in any population, even if the parents are rich, in our state, children, irrespective of the parents' income, are considered indigents. So even the corrupt law system that we have acknowledges the vulnerability of children. What's worse as well, besides the dollar incentive and all of these new stakeholders, coupled with this presumption of what's immunity, meaning that the stakeholders cannot be brought to justice, they cannot be exposed, you can't leverage any charges against them. It's an absolute contradiction to the Constitution. So let's say, to quote, back in the day when I was teaching as a medical anthropologist and in the School of Social Work at Temple University, there were still, let's say, old school social workers who were involved in DHS, but who had the compassion, the humanitarianism, the moral grounding, and the good ethics to broker the demands of the system and really act in favor of the children. I've known some of those social workers who really said, okay, yeah, they might come into your home and perform the home inspection, and they see that, hey, the hot water isn't on. Well, why? Because you obviously couldn't afford to pay the heating bill or whatever it was at the time. And even though the rules say take the children, if you notice that the hot water isn't working, very often they wouldn't just take your children based on anything like that. They had the common sense to assess the situation, and they knew how to connect that family with the resources to conserve the families. I've witnessed it. I've known social workers like that. And then right around going into the year 2000 and then escalating, the system became more vicious, more recalcitrant, and the model for the system went from, let's say, a human services design model, which even kind of pretended that it was going to give services to children, and right around that period, we still had an incentive or a program called SCOH, SCOH, which would be services to children in their own homes. And at first, it seemed like, well, the system is just giving incentives to errant families, but really, in theory, it was a system to again resource families so that they could keep their children and keep them well.
Mhm.
Well, that model shifted, like the universities and so many of our other institutions, our churches, into a purely corporate model. And the corporate model means the first thing that's done is that the long-standing senior workers who are dedicated, who understand, are let go.
Mhm.
And they are replaced, displaced, and replaced with, there's nothing wrong with being young, but young, inexperienced, let's say largely immoral and unethical
Mhm.
employees who don't have any tie to the communities that where they work. They live elsewhere. They come in and they take cream the dollars off of the communities where they work, and then they go home.
Mhm.
So that old staple, the old guard, was gone. There's no place left for them. And then the new people who are in charge, of course, are just a little bit above, let's say, biomaterial.
Mhm.
That's the best that I can that I can think about them. So, in answer to your question, yes, even the corrupt system that still had worthy ambassadors is worse.
Mhm.
In my case, for example, I can't think of a single person on a panel of maybe 12 people that has really done anything or even said anything in the interest of my granddaughter.
Mhm.
Not the GAL, not my daughter's attorney, certainly not my daughter, absolutely not the judge, certainly not the panel of social workers responsible for kidnapping her. There was a nurse involved. There was medical practitioners involved. There hasn't been a single person, not one person that I could go to and I could say, "Oh my God, you care about the baby."
Mhm. And that's what they're supposed to be all about, and that's what drives me insane. Because when we were at the TPR hearing, and they're saying, we know what was going on with our daughter, that she was crying herself to sleep every night because she missed us so much. But then they don't even bring that up when they're in the TPR. They're like, "Oh, were these things happening?" No, they weren't happening. These foster families that are supposed to be there in support of, because listen, the Title IV funding says that you don't get that money unless you're promoting reunification. It clearly says that. None of these groups, why is there only 12% reunification rate? 12% is what you get out of their own numbers. There's not made up math. It's nothing. You just got to take their math. They take their numbers, their statistics, their very own, and do the mathematics with them. And you see it yourself, the stats. 12% of families get reunification. What the hell kind of numbers is that? And why are they getting this money? It's fraud. They're supposed to be
And then they
providing
get
service.
they get more money when they do the opposite of what they're supposed to do. Meaning
Right.
all the incentives they get when they adopt your children out. It should be the other way around. The incentives should be there for reunifying the families.
And that,
It's just
Um, that's right. Pardon me for interrupting you guys. Pardon me, Darren. And with the dollar incentive, everybody makes these dollars except the children and the families. And it would seem to me that universally, no matter who we are, if there is a goal of reunification, how could that goal just simply be restricted to the parents? Why can't the so-called reunification be here lawfully? It's supposed to be with the family,
mhm,
not just the parent.
right. Some,
But the families are shut out.
mhm,
So we have hundreds of thousands of children who are displaced because the families are not allowed to even assert themselves or show up or be included.
mhm. And when they are now, they're forced to get foster home licenses, or a way that CPS can keep their hands in the game with them, that they still have the control and they still allow the money to come through. Tell me why a kinship family up here in the state of Maine has to get a foster care license. Why? What for?
Mhm, mhm,
You know?
mhm. Same here. Same here. In fact, the world may know that I was certified as a foster parent by the same agency that kidnapped her. I was certified on the 3rd of October, and she was stolen from my arms via a medical kidnapping on the 7th of October.
So 4 days, 4 days for you to go through all that bull crap to get this license. That means absolutely nothing. I mean, that's just asinine. It's just so ridiculous. It's absolutely right. The kids are never placed at the top of this. Obviously, we as the parents, we're angry, we're upset, we're hurt. It's kind of like dealing with death. Like the stages of when you're gonna die. Like you're upset, then you're depressed, and you're angry about it, and like those things. It's the same thing going through this. Like you're fire hot when this first happens, and then you're depressed, and then you're sad, and then you come to the conclusion, and then you go back at it. Like you never. Why would you take children away from parents like us that have been doing this for years now? Fowler, obviously you lead the show in this, but I can see Deidre and I in 20 years from now still doing the same damn thing, because this isn't right. I mean, I hope that we don't have to go through this long, and as long as that you've been married to the system by saving your grandkids and making them your own. But like I don't feel like we're seeing much. This movement needs to grow by people sticking together. And that's another thing I wanted to talk to with the three of us together, because we've seen the ugly rear its head. And I don't want to mention names. I don't want to talk about places, but we've seen how this thing rears its ugly head in the name of money, in the name of stardom, on the name of all of these things. And it's disgusting. If this stuff isn't about these kids and these families that are hurt, then they need to get the hell out of this, because they're not helping anybody. And people need to watch out for these cons, for these people that are narcissists, that are claiming that others are narcissists. They need to watch out for people that are just trying, because parents are so freaking vulnerable in this. I mean, I'm guilty as hell as being the anybody that came through and said they could help me get my kid back for 50 or $100, I had no problem with throwing it at him. I didn't care what it was going to cost me. I mean, ultimately it ended up me being broke, but like you go ahead, the peddler, if he come through with something, I tried it, and it's terrible, but we will all do it. There's nothing that will stop us from trying to keep our kids. So why are we bad parents?
But then the kids that really do need to be taken out of their situations, they're never going to get the saving grace, or the help, if you want to call it that. But yet, like whoever said the word damaged goods, it's like that. They don't want those kids. They want the kids that are actually loved by the parents and are actually, healthy and whatever you want to call it. I mean, it's disgusting to think that here the foster parents of my child couldn't have their own children biologically. Gee, I wonder why they weren't blessed to have their own children, but yet now they get to take my beautiful, healthy baby for what cause? To now just get, reap the benefits of, I mean, I'll never forget the one time that they told me, I think it was Thanksgiving, when they responded to a text and said that they were grateful for me. Meaning, how could they even say that? You're grateful for me that what? You stole my child? I mean, what are you grateful for? That, I produced a perfectly healthy, beautiful baby that you got to basically kidnap and now pretend is yours for the rest of your life? Like, I mean, some of the things that they've said to me, I'm just like, whoa, but then again, I'm always waiting for that. God forbid if I have to wait, but till that day that my son is old enough and finally puts all the pieces together and finds out the unfortunate truth of everything. And then where does he really stand? Does he want to like resent them and hate them and now not have a relationship with them, but then still be so hurt and not knowing anything of the truth from his biological family? Or, the poor child is just going to be so lost in between. And for what? Why was that necessary? This child of mine was not even born into this world when my case opened. But then he gets born 2 months later, they take him from the hospital, and I've never had him a day since. I mean, I just don't understand how I ultimately lost this child that wasn't even born when a case of mine opened, and yet shouldn't even have continued. But I felt like, again, it only continued because of that situation in its entirety.
Fowler, How does it feel
Mhm.
for you? So, like, obviously, with my situation, my family took my daughter and things went array. We don't know what happened or whatever, but it did happen. Like, that was my best friend. But for you, you don't even know where your granddaughter is. And nobody, like you said, is coming to your aid and trying to even lend you a lick of. So, this is what I don't get. Here we are, your daughter is not worthy of being a mother. You immediately step up to take the plate of the daughter, take the plate. You know, like I'm here. I want to be mom now for to keep my family in line. Right? Awesome, perfect. You're cleared. You got your foster care license. You've done everything you have to do. They still take the damn baby away from you, even though you had custody and you have all of this stuff. You have done all of these things to keep your family in line, but yet the department wants to cry permanency, 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 and all they're doing is keeping your granddaughter away from her permanency. I mean, what? How do you?
How does it feel? I'm morbidly devastating. I almost wish,
I know what you want to say.
it's hard to say. It's other than this torment, yes, of course, there are worse things than sickness and death. I'll just put it this way.
Mm-hmm.
There are worse things than sickness and death, and one of them is the living torment,
Mm-hmm.
like you, Deidre, of wondering what is going on with an infant in the world where people are so insane, so mentally unbalanced. What is she eating today? Did somebody let her cry today? Did somebody smack her because she was crying today? Did somebody tamper with her? And you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean. Did some other children poke her in the eye today? Did somebody drop her today? Did they fling her against the wall today? She has no voice. And you know what happens to children when they're in detention, in these detention camps? Everything in the world happens to them.
Mm-hmm.
And if they get to the hospital, they don't even have any rights still. They don't have any rights for relief. So every single human right, every right by the merciful God was violated here. Every single chapter of the law has been violated for 17
Mm-hmm.
months and sustained as a violation. Every chapter of law calls for the baby to be placed with her grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not just the grandmother, I'm the custodial parent.
Mm-hmm.
I still have physical legal custody, and I was at the adoption counter today trying to file, Deidre. How about this? Because there are some cases where adoption and TPR can be used for the positive, and here I am trying to do this before the court can put my granddaughter on the adoption mill, and I'm trying to use the words to explain to the clerk who refused my filing that I actually have court awarded full physical and legal custody of my granddaughter. But the clerk is going, yeah, but she's in DHS. You don't have custody. I'm like, but I do. I couldn't find the words to explain to her
You're like,
that
the
I
only
have
reason why they
jurisdiction.
have her now is because they kidnapped her from me, is what you're trying to say,
Right. That's what I
right?
keep saying to her
I
too.
could not.
She
I
needs to file
couldn't find
kidnapping charges.
this. I couldn't. I've tried, and I tried.
But do you think,
I
Dr.
went
Fowler, the main
everywhere that I
reason why
could to.
they took her from you is because your daughter was pushing so hard for you not to have her?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yes. My daughter is the main culprit. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's
My daughter is
But
off
why
the
would they
rails
even
in
give
terms
her
of her
a leg to
psychosis.
stand on,
yeah.
knowing
Why does
how
she even get a voice?
basically, I
These
mean,
people
it's just so
Well,
ass
she is,
backward.
she
It's so
is,
ass backward.
my daughter is the perfect candidate for them because they see her coming a mile off. They know how easily manipulated she is because her mind tells her to work against me. They love that already. They see the dissension
But what
coming
I'm trying to say
and
is
they
if
fill
they
her
have to
mind
take the
with
baby
pride.
from her because she's just so not like basically okay to be a mother,
Right,
then why would they even give her
right.
any kind of voice to
right.
even
That's what they want.
be
They
able to
want that.
say who she wants her baby with? You know what I mean? It's like, here's basically
Do I
the
know
low
what you
life over
mean?
here, excuse my language, but here's the low life over here that we're going to take your baby from. But wait a minute. Now, where would you like your baby to go? I'm like,
Right.
wait, what?
No. Huh. My daughter would not ever rest until that baby was taken from me. She wanted the baby, just like the other children. She lives to have her children in torment and pain. She can't take it if they're not. And she knows exactly how to manipulate these agents, and they know how to manipulate her.
That is disgusting.
She would not rest until, and I scribed it. I wrote letters asking for injunctive relief from the social worker and my daughter. I wrote to the court and explained that they are going to tamper with I thought it was just going to be my daughter, tamper with the baby's food. This was her plan. I didn't have to imagine this, and she's done it before.
So
Tamper with
sick.
the baby's food during the quote family visits. She said, I can do it. I can put something in her food and make her sick. They'll think you did it. That way they'll take her away from you and put her into foster care, and then I can get her back
Oh, Lordy.
because she's desperate to have a baby, to use the baby for benefits.
God,
She wouldn't
That's
even
why
be
she
able to
had
keep the
another
baby
baby.
alive.
this
God.
is sick.
So this is exactly what happened. During the course of the family visit, she was permitted to tamper with the baby's food. I had already scribed it. She was permitted, in my absence, to steal the baby's clothing.
Unreal.
When I got the baby back, I looked at the diaper bag. I'm like, well, where's her food and where's her clothes? You know how, like, I'm a grandmom, so I pack like a whole bunch of clothes and a whole bunch of stuff in the diaper bag, enough for, you
2
know, like a
years.
3-month vacation. Right.
You're like, if she gets cold, if she gets
Exactly.
hot, if she spits up, if she has shit her pants. I mean,
Yeah.
I know. So, but I bring it home. It's empty, basically. I'm like,
what did she
I
do
tell
with
my
it?
daughter, I'm like,
What did she do with it?
what happened to the clothes? Oh, this is one of her MOs. She's always taken the children's clothing
Oh, Lordy.
to, guess what? Sell the
Oh, I was
clothing.
going to say to sell it probably.
Wow.
Yes, brand new, beautiful babies things. That's how low we are here, folks.
Yep. But
Wow.
she gets to say,
Okay, whereas
But
you
she
have
gets to
some parents who will go out and steal for their children. We're talking about someone who has stolen her children's food and sold her children's food.
Oh, wow.
but she gets to say, she can decide that you, a grandma that has raised her other children, you can't have this one.
Yeah, so in answer to your question, Deidre, I'm thousand child line complaints about me that are, of course, we know any allegations are bitterly untrue. And my case follows the typical medical kidnapping, like the one that's found in Finding Maya, where now the parent is criminalized. It's happened to you, it's happened to all of us as a part of the medical kidnapping. And as far as I'm concerned, just that alone is pedophilia. That's it.
Mhm.
You don't have to actually consummate a physical or a carnal act to be for that condition to exist, if you understand what I mean.
Mhm.
Now, with the adoption TPR, my effort was to file this adoption and TPR before the court can file it, even though independency court, hey, we still have the goal of reunification. Certain persons have done nothing to meet their benchmarks. She missed like 6 court hearings. Then she acted out when she did show up in court, but the goal is still reunification. So at the clerk's counter in Philadelphia Family Court is notorious for disallowing anyone to file their motions. They give the lawyers a terrible time, and you have to schmooze them and you have to cajole them. And here I am today wanting to file this TPR and adoption packet that took me, Deidre, tens and tens and tens and tens of hours to put together. Because in doing the research, Philadelphia doesn't have an available packet like the other counties do online. Another thing, guys, the corruption in the adoption system. Are you ready for this? Remember a guy called Benjamin Franklin, one of the founding members of our country? He was around here in Philadelphia. He established the court that you guys use it's called Orphans Court. The original purpose of Orphans Court, which is inside of the civil court, is to ensure that children and decedents receive their proper inheritance. It had to do with wills and estates and trusts. So adoptions and marriages have always been performed in Orphans Court, which when you think about it, it makes sense because it has to do with family and the transmission of property. Well, guess what? Philadelphia has now removed adoptions to family court. Yeah. How's that possible? How are you supposed to handle then inheritance and things like that if you don't have the adoptions into family court? Are you feeling what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's utterly disgusting because it means now that all the children who come to that portal are basically have no rights in the civil process. And guess what else? My custody petition goes right back to this same judge. Yeah. The adoptions go to him. So our
Wow.
chances of even having the adoption done across the street in a civil court, 0. It's like hell. No, it's below hell. If this is worse than a Stephen King movie. It's like everywhere you turn, there's the monster.
Oh yeah.
One person
I mean,
has this much power and authority and control. Pardon me, I almost said a really bad word. And where I'm going with this is that there is a caveat. I have not been able to obtain a birth certificate. I don't know where my granddaughter was born. I endeavored to find it because my daughter was on the lam when she had the baby because her DHS case had just closed with the middle grandson and she knew the DHS was going to snatch the baby. Was she born in Pennsylvania? Don't know. Delaware? Don't know. New Jersey? Don't know. I just haven't been able to get the birth certificate for different reasons. But when you file the adoption TPR, you just can say, "Listen, I couldn't get the birth certificate. DHS has it. I mean, it's right here at the same court." Well, I did that, and today I was denied the ability to file it because I was told you don't have the birth certificate. I tried to explain.
Well, see, I
DHS
have
has
a question about that with the birth certificates. The foster parents already made it very clear that when the adoption goes through and is finalized, that they are going to change his last name. So will that then make his birth certificate null and void because they're changing his last name?
I think they gave him a new one.
I am far from any kind of an expert in this. I definitely, just so everybody can know,
Because
not
of
lawyer,
course
not
I
attorney,
have
not
his
doctor.
birth certificate, because I
Mhm.
just have it. I mean, it was mailed to me, I never
Well, you
thought
gave
that
birth
my
to
child.
him.
What?
Mhm.
You gave birth
What?
to him. You should have the birth
Well,
certificate.
yeah, I mean, and
You
it
know?
has,
Mhm.
my name and my husband's name, and it has his name as, my husband's last name. But if they go and
Mhm.
change his last name, does that
Mhm.
technically make his birth certificate be basically obsolete?
Mhm. I mean,
Mhm.
now
Wow.
don't quote me. I can only say what I've read. I'm far from an expert. This is my first venture into this, trying to, navigate this myself. But based on the rules that I've read here, that's all I know. Once the adoption and TPR are consummated, then there is a new name, the old birth certificate, they do something with it, and then they
And
establish a
his
new
old
birth
social, I'm
certificate.
assuming too, then, right?
Correct.
I don't know if your social security number ever changes because encoded in
It-
that is your birthplace, your
Mhm.
race, and a lot of
But
other
if they're changing
demographics.
his last name, I would think that they would
Right.
have to give him a new
They,
social because
so they are allowed the option
I don't think
to.
I could be wrong, guys, but I don't think social. I think once you get that social, that's
Mm,
it because
mm.
all of your demographic data is encoded in that.
Yeah,
Your
this is
state.
how
so what?
DHS.
They're gonna wipe away his birth
This
last
is
name
how.
and just give
This
him
is
the
how
new one?
DHS. This is how they steal all this
Yeah.
funding because
The,
they
the
keep the
new,
original.
the,
They they keep the original one, and they still bill for that original social security number, and then they're issued a new social security number once they're changed. Their family's allowed to have that option that adopt them. It's up to them what they do with the birth certificate and the social security numbers.
That is
A
so
lot of
sick.
them, yeah. So that's the way that it goes down. I just did
Like,
a bunch
who
of reading on
the
that.
F are these individuals that now get to basically make all of these such concrete,
Mhm.
lasting, permanent type of decisions with a child that
Mhm.
isn't even theirs?
Mhm.
I mean,
I
it's
My,
would. I
so.
would.
not to change the subject, but my night terror has been some kind of a secret hearing because remember, I'm not even acknowledged as a party. After 17 months, I'm not a party.
But
So
Even though
yet
my
you're
you're
fear
still the
has been that they'll
custodial
have
parent. I don't understand that.
my fear has been that they'll hold a secret hearing. I've seen it happen. And they'll rush through one hearing. I mean, they'll, you know, convene, do the TPR, take a break, come right back and do the adoption right then and there. Because why? Because it's another violation and they haven't done it. The only thing in my experience that's ever been done in keeping with the law is signing onto that check,
Mhm.
that Pennsylvania 426330 shelter hearing. Best believe that's going to happen. That's going to
Mhm.
happen within the 24 hours. They're going to hold that hearing so they can open that check. And after that,
Yep,
that's
that's
it.
it.
And the
That's it.
only thing that we have going for us right now is the 17 to 22 month window when you have the first download of money, right? Somebody writes the check when they first do the kidnapping. But check this out. The reason why these dependency hearings are every 3 months is not because of the court calendricals. It's because every 3 months there's a financial consideration on the payout.
Yep.
So
Yep.
when they grab your kid for the first 3 months, there's still just a promise. There's actually no payout.
Mhm.
It is the first check isn't actually released until the 6-month period. Well, that's only
Mhm.
one. Now you got to keep them another 3 months so you get
Mhm.
another payment. Are you feeling what I'm saying? So now we're
Mhm.
coming up on the 17th month. Now at this point, the money's starting to look strange. It's not going to dry up. But that big pot, that big download is going to plateau now. That's why,
Mhm.
now we're going to have to decide about the change in goals. No, it's because the funding is going to change,
Yep.
especially for an
Yep.
infant. Are you
Yep.
with me?
Mhm.
That's our
That's it.
only slight advantage in this case. Now, Deirdre, I wanted to speak to you about this because I'm just discovering, my darling, I just found this out a couple of days ago. I had written to my daughter's lawyer several weeks ago, and I said to her, "Do you think that you could, counsel your client in the interest of the baby? Can we have a conversation about what's best for the baby?" And I plan to adopt, and I wish to acknowledge Act 101. I don't know if you have this equivalent, Deirdre. I always feel like it's never too
Mm.
late. I don't mean to inspire false hope, but if man created a problem, we can fix it. There's
Mhm.
always something that
Mm.
we can do. There is
Mhm.
always something that can be done. What it is, don't know. Maybe it's the same thing we tried 100 times. Maybe the 101 time might work. But at any rate, I offered in my letter of request for conferencing or communication to acknowledge Act 101. Here, that means that it's an open adoption, which would mean essentially that my daughter, with our agreement, I don't really mean it, but through our agreement, my daughter would be able to continue to have a relationship with the baby. It wouldn't be a closed adoption. It would be more like me assuming the parental duties, and then she would have the equivalent of what we call visitation, which is a form of partial custody to
They
keep
did
the.
that to us. But
Oh,
Mr. Davis told me it's basically blowing smoke up my ass because what it is, it's called a post adoption agreement contract. And we did that. And we had a mediator. And that's when the truthness really came out because we had to come to an agreement between the
mhm.
foster parents and both me and my husband about what possible type of visitation they were going to allow. And here I
Okay.
was coming with the fact of thinking that they would at least let me see him once a month. And that's when we found out the bare minimum they were going to allow us to see him would be once a year on
What?
his birthday if we were lucky. And that's all they would agree to. And that's when all of the true colors started to come out. And so finally, we had to come to an agreement, right? Or else we weren't going to have this contract. It was just going to be null and void. And the mediator was going to go back to the courts and say they couldn't come up with an agreement. So we were almost pushed into having to agree to that because it was either that or nothing, right? When I asked Mr. Davis about it, like what weight does it hold in court if, like, let's say they decide to not let us see him once a year? He said it holds no fucking weight in court whatsoever. There's no like legal, whatever you want to call it, to it. It's just basically they were blowing more smoke up our ass just to carry us along.
Mm.
So yeah,
Yes, because they
Meaning it even
probably
said
didn't
right in there
even.
that it was supposed to be considered like what you just called kind of an open adoption. They wanted us to be able to
Mhm,
still be in his life and for him to
mhm,
still be, in knowing of us in our existence, and that we would get to
mhm,
see him at least once a year, and they would periodically every 4 months or so maybe send a picture, and that they had an email that they provided for him that's called Caden's Life Story at Gmail. And if I ever wanted to write to him or, send anything, and I'm thinking, yeah, fucking right, I have my own, if you want to call it, email or diary that he can read one day, because who knows what they would manipulate out of it. But it's like, how do I email a freaking 1, 2, 3 year old now? But yeah, no, they totally like just fluffed our feathers all throughout the way, even right down to the
mhm,
TPR hearing, when now they're showing up with their own lawyer. And my now
mhm.
mother-in-law, that they had no idea who she was or what she looked like, purposely sat outside the courtroom and sat next to them and overheard them say to their lawyer, we need to hurry this along because we need to keep our son. And then said things, where was I going with this? Um, basically gave us a plea deal. So because we had this agreement contract where they were going to let us see the child once a year, their lawyer really came to us on one of the breaks and asked our public defender if they were to allow us to see the kid maybe 2 or 3 times a year, would we just go ahead and sign over our rights to them so that they could just adopt our child and be done with this? I'm like, so wait a minute, are you trying to give me a plea deal for my kid now? I'm like, no. And then now to know that not even this contract holds any kind of legal weight. So, that would have even been worse. But do you see where I was going with this? They kind of got a little scared maybe because, you know, of whatever was being thrown at them. Because, my mother-in-law tried to um, take placement of not only my youngest, but all 3 kids since day one. But because she lived in another county, they basically effed with her and kept giving her the runaround. And to the very end, they did what you guys talked about earlier, forced her to become a foster parent, forced her to taking all these classes, all these certifications. And now the real like kind of sucker punch of the story was, never was she then good enough to basically have her own grandchildren, but now because she is licensed and had done everything, now ironically she has not only one, not two, but 3 foster children of her own that are not like related, but she went through all of it and she saw all the benefits of that she could get financially. Not that that's why she's doing it, but how sick is to think now at the end of the day, she's good enough to be a foster parent to 3 stranger kids, but was never
Mhm.
Was
good enough to
truly
be
wrong.
a grandmother to her own grandchildren.
Mhm.
Help me through this.
Yeah.
Understood.
I want
One
to.
of the thoughts that comes to my mind, and I certainly don't know this, and I'm not at all embarrassed or ashamed to say, but every day that I wake up and I live in this world, I feel just a little less informed. The more I find out, I feel like the less I know. But it would
Well,
seem to me that unless that kind of what you're calling a post-adoption agreement, and I've seen the form in my package, unless that is consummated in an actual order, you're giving me an idea, then how else could it be enforceable? You see, if it's
hey,
an
Exactly.
agreement,
hey,
like
how is any of this enforceable? This is a voluntary service. How are these judges able to sit on a bench and decide
mm,
what you are to do in a voluntary service? They call that extortion. Think about that. This is all
mhm,
voluntary. We don't have to
mhm.
do or abide by any of this. This is all voluntary services. That's it. Watch
Well, you
this. I'm going
And
to
see,
show
to
you.
think,
one of
and to
the
think the
reasons
only reason
why,
I ever got CPS involved in my life, the very bitter start of all this, is because I reached out to get help for my husband with his mental health. And that's
Mhm.
when CPS came in just to simply interview our children. And there it went.
Watch this.
Meaning, here,
Watch.
I reached out thinking I was trying to get help for my
Mhm.
husband. And this is
Here-
what it ultimately led to, was
Watch
losing our
this.
children.
Here's another.
mm,
Here's a new education for you guys right here. Watch this. This is my buddy Malibu Dallas.
oh,
Darren, don't be doing nothing technical. You're gonna wipe us off the whole thing.
Watch this. How crazy is that?
I didn't hear nothing.
You didn't? Oh shoot! I didn't play. See, I did something technical. Watch this. Sorry about that. The moron I am. Hold on a minute.
We're
Watch
waiting.
this. All right. I forgot to click the button. Hold on a minute. Sorry, my bad. Here we go.
Oh shit.
Here we go. Okay.
We were both right, but this is the correct citation. Corpus Juris Secundum 7, Section 76. The attorney's duty to the court is superior to the attorney's duty to a client. They all have that superior duty.
Attorneys and clients. His first duty is to the courts and the public.
I'm as guilty as you.
Isn't that crazy? So
Oh,
your attorneys work for those courts before they work for your best interests. Think about that. Ladies, we are at our time's end. We're actually over.
Yeah, I was gonna tell you. My
Um,
husband keeps calling. He's probably wondering what the heck am I doing.
Last words, either one of you?
Oh God, where do we ever have any last words with this whole nightmare? The
Well,
last words will be when our children are back with us. That will be my last word.
I have a last word. I want to really articulate my thanks and my deepest appreciation for you, Deidre, and you, Darren, and for your tireless hours, your dedication, especially as a dad. And by this being Men in the Trenches, I would like to leave a closing word of true love, true care, true compassion, and true prayer and recognition of the plight of the dads, the men in our country. I pray for you. I uplift you in my heart and my soul. And I commend you to Lord Jesus and to his powers and his strength and his love. You have value beyond even your family and your children, but you have value unto yourself as man's creativity, of God's creativity and divinity in man. Don't lose your life over this. Continue to live and continue to bring power and glory to his majesty and to reach out to other men and join us in our cause.
Amen. All right, ladies, thank you so much. We will catch you guys all on the flip side. See you guys back here Monday night, 7 o'clock. Have a good weekend, everybody.
All right, bye.
Ooh, Lordy. Let's see if I can get this right. All right. Thank you, everybody.